On to the summer fever. Give the motherfuckers ether. You ain't a people pleaser. Nah, you just a skeezer. Hey, I took y'all back with that word. Y'all don't even know what that word means, do y'all?
All right. Well, allow us to start the show. What's up, people? Welcome. Tonight, I'm in a different location than I normally am. Much faster, more reliable internet connection. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining me tonight. Today, or tonight, we're going to talk about fascism and basically like what it is, because there's been a lot of stuff in regard to you know there's been a lot of interactions I've had on the internet with a bunch of different individuals in regard to like what fascism is. Are we experiencing it now? Is Trump a fascist? Is Trump not a fascist? What does it mean to be anti-fascist? Are Antifa and anti-fascist the same thing? What are these organizations? And I feel like some clarity needs to be made in regard to the issues. And a lot of people have a lot of things misconstrued, but I think also too a lot of people are intentionally spreading disinformation to promote the idea that the people who are actually fighting fascism are the ones who are the actual fascists. And so I think the best way to explore that is to actually consult history, because we can talk about opinions all day long. We can talk about what happened. We can talk about what we think things are. But at the end of the day, facts are facts, and facts don't care about your feelings. like the right wingers love to say. So anyway, to make a long story short, we're going to go about the facts behind fascism. Where it came from, what it is, what we can do to push back against it. Is the positive aspects of it, a positive way to approach society or a negative way to approach society? Historically, I would say it's probably a negative way. And even those people who are the one defining truth when it comes to dealing with individuals who basically state that the left is fascist and that people who are against Trump are fascists or whatever. But the one defining truth that exists in that statement is they recognize that fascism is a bad thing. Like that's not up for debate. Whether you're left or right, that's one thing that's consistent. Nobody wants to be associated with fascism, right? So that's the linchpin to this whole debate. It's the fact that there is this negative connotation associated with this status in regard to our society and how we run it. That means that Lee is here, I believe. What's up, brother? What's going on? Let me see if I can get you a better view here. How's your day been?
Pretty good.
Well, basically, I was talking to the group about fascism, what it is, what we. One second, let me fix this string. Transform. There we go. Now you're on. Sorry, everybody. So what I was talking to everybody about was basically fascism, what it is, what we can do to address it, and what we need to do to. How do we define it? And we've been talking about basically like what we've been dealing with online in regard to fascism and what people have been saying. What encounters we've had with people on the left and the right. So that's what I wanted to kind of get into today.
Right.
Let me see here. I want to make sure I can hear you. I'm not getting any input back from anybody on Restream just yet, but we are, as far as I know right now, your audio should be good.
All right. Yeah, I finally found my headset.
Oh, you found your headset you can talk?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let me get one more.
So that should cancel out any echoes from not having my mic muted when I'm listening.
Okay. There we go. You want to talk for me? You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, I think we're good as far as the audio is concerned. I'm not hearing anything from anybody else, so we'll see what's up. Let me. Can you talk now? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so basically in regard to fascism and what fascism is, one of the things that I wanted to focus on was there was an Italian by the name of Umberto Eco who lived during World War II, under the rule of Mussolini. He wrote a bunch of books, but he basically spoke firsthand about fascism and what fascism is, and then proceeded to basically lay out 14 points. And we can't go over all 14 points necessarily, But we can talk about what we can talk about the first, three, and that's why I want to do. I want to break this up into like sections of three. Yeah, I think you're frozen right now, but yeah. So I want to talk about sections of three, and the first 3 points of fascism and what we understand them to be based off of what Umberto Eco said. Let me please open this other window over here. All right, you're back. Yeah, when it freezes, now I have the power. I mean, because I'm right here at the desk, I can switch away for shortly. But yeah, you're back, so we're good.
Yeah,
okay.
If I go out of the app on the phone, I can still hear and talk, but I think it cancels the
video feed. Okay, all right. So I was like, what was going on? Okay, so like I was saying, Umberto Eco. Okay, so I want to give a quick primer on Umberto Eco. He was an Italian. He was born January 1932, died February 19th, 2016. So just a few years ago. We're in 2019 now. So yeah, right whenever Trump became president, Umberto Eco says, "I'm out of this bitch." He was an Italian novelist. So basically, he was like, "I'm not doing this shit again." But yeah, so he was an Italian novelist, literary critic, philosopher, semiotician. I've never heard that word before. And university professor. He is widely known for his 1980 novel, Il Nome della Rosa, The Name of the Rose, a historical mystery combining semiotics and fiction with biblical analysis, medieval studies, and literary theory. He later wrote other novels, including Foucault's Pendulum and The Island of the Day Before. His novel, The Prague Cemetery, released in 2010, was topped the bestseller charts in Italy. What's more important to us is basically what he wrote about the 14 points of fascism. And so I'm going to pull this up real quick. And I know you can't see, so just bear with me, Lee.
Yeah, I did skim over.
Okay, good.
That article, and then I got to the first three, just to do a little prep before we started.
Cool. So I'm going to go over the 14 points of fascism really quick. So I'm going to see if I can share this screen with everybody online as I am doing this. I might be able to share it with you too, as a matter of fact, because let's see here, share. Yeah, I can share it with you. You might be able to see this. This might be nice. This might be a good look. Let me see this. So can you see this on your screen now?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So this is what I want to do from this point forward. All right. So basically, in these 14 points of fascism, we have one, the cult of tradition. So one only has to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi gnosis was nourished by the traditionalist syncretistic occult elements. And I'll get into that, especially the occult elements. We'll talk about the intersectionality between the occult that the Nazis were dealing with and what we're facing in regard to the religious right here. So I would expand that to include not occult necessarily, but I would say supernatural elements, because I don't believe we can't say Christianity is the occult, but we can say that the perversion of Christianity could be a cult or a cult, if you will. But yeah, I don't think it necessarily falls into what we recognize as the occult, like witches and devil worship and stuff like that. Two, the rejection of modernism. The Enlightenment, the Age of Reason, is seen as the beginning of modern depravity. In this sense, fascism can be defined as irrationalism. So these quotes are statements that came from Umberto Eco in regard to what fascism, is. And so that's how we got these 14 points. 3, the cult of action for action's sake. action being beautiful in itself, must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. All right. 4, disagreement is treason. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. In modern culture, the scientific community praises disagreement as a way to improve knowledge. So we have groupthink, and I'll talk about that too. We're going to get through the first 3 today, but I want to at least go over all of them so people know where we're going. 5, fear of difference. The first appeal of a fascist or prematurely fascist movement is an appeal against the intruders. Thus, fascism is racist by definition. 6, appeal to social frustration. One of the most typical features of the historical fascism was the appeal to a frustrated middle class, a class suffering from an economic crisis, or feelings of political humiliation and frightened by the pressure of lower social groups. All right, if that shit doesn't hit on the money, I don't know what does. All right. 7, the obsession with the plot. The followers must feel besieged. The easiest way to solve the plot is the appeal to xenophobia. 8, the enemy is both strong and weak. So, wait 1 second here. I lost my page. The enemy is both strong and weak. By continuous shifting of rhetorical focus, the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. 9, pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. For fascism, there is no struggle for life, but rather life is lived for struggle. 10, contempt for the weak. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology. 11, everybody is educated to become a hero. In fascist ideology, heroism is the norm. This cult of heroism is strictly linked with the cult of death, and I believe that intersects perfectly fine with what we talked about earlier in regard to gun control, and basically these rogue actors who are basically red pilling themselves and radicalizing themselves online to go out and fight for the race. What we saw in El Paso, I believe, is a direct reflection of that point, and whenever we get down to it, we'll talk about that again. Let's see. Pacifism. I think I jumped over one. 9. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. For fascism, there is no struggle for life, but rather life is lived for struggle. Let's see here. 7. Where we go? Contempt for the weak. Everybody educated from here. Okay. 12. Machismo and weaponry. Machismo, your Proud Boys, implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits from chastity to homosexuality. All right? So if you're talking about opposing homosexuals, if you're talking about, being chaste and punishing women for using birth control, if you're talking about women have a place in the home and they shouldn't and they need to be quiet and stuff like that, that's what we're talking about here in regard to someone who, from the perspective of someone who defined what fascism is from living through it. So this is not something new that just popped up today, or in 2016 whenever Trump became president. We're talking about something that has been established. 13, selective populism. There's a future, there is in our future a TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selective group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the voice of the people. 14, Earth fascism speaks newspeak. All the Nazi or fascist school books made use of an impoverished vocabulary and an elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments for complex and critical reasoning. All right? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. All right. So, yeah. So, right there, we're pretty much, straight up down the line, we know what fascism is supposed to look like, and we know what it does not look like. Homophobia, misogyny, violence, appeal to heroism, these are all things that we are seeing exhibited right now, especially in regard to the proliferation of unintelligent syntax and the degradation of the human language. We're seeing that on a regular basis right now. It's not something that is theoretical or could be happening or whatever. Like, you can look at Trump, who declared himself the second coming, and see that's what it is. What did you take from your initial review of the 14 points?
I mean, it's anyone who can't look at that and see parallels in modern America today is probably not equipped to have an intellectual discussion, period. Because either they can't understand the parallels, or they're intentionally ignoring them, and so they're too biased to even reason with.
I agree. I mean, that's
the very first one: traditionalism, make America great
again. Exactly.
We've got to go back to our tradition where we were great in the past.
Exactly.
And we're going to give each of you a red hat so you can be part of the club.
And so, and everybody,
you look at today, and you look at Nazi Germany.
Yep.
I mean, without naming names or going geographical, you have a political party with a figurehead that's very charismatic, is very good with speeches, can whip people into a fury, and has a very, very large core group of people who are willing to believe everything that they say over what is actually happening. I mean, that could apply to Trump, or it could also just as easily describe Hitler and the Nazi Party.
Demagoguery is is a key part of fascism. It's basically being able to, an individual who doesn't have to be eloquent. They don't have to be, they don't have to be, egalitarian, or they just basically have to be able to whip the people up by telling them what they want to hear, how they want to hear it, pretty much. And so basically that's what we've seen. We saw that with Hitler. We saw that with Mussolini. We saw that with Trump. Really verbose speeches that appeal to the downtrodden, impoverished classes that feel like they're going to be replaced. That was a whole other thing that we talked about. That was another point of fascism. Point 6, an appeal to social frustration, and we'll talk about that. So, an appeal to social frustration is something that we felt across the board in 2016. And so this is what I feel is a big issue when it comes to reclaiming individuals who may who may have voted for Trump out of frustration, out of just being tired with the system as it is. I feel like that's a common through line that existed in 2016 on the left and on the right. I know, we saw that. The only question is the direction people went with that feeling. And I say this, and I'll say this 5,000 times. I don't have an issue with Trump voters necessarily. I have an issue with Trump supporters, because whenever in 2016 you voted, you didn't know. Some people didn't know who they were voting for. We have a severe lack of knowledge about what goes on in regard to our political system. But now in 2019, we've seen God Emperor Trump, do the worst, and people are still on board with that.
Right. You could see we had two populist candidates going into 2016. Unfortunately, only one made it through the prospective primary.
Exactly.
Bernie Sanders said, "You're frustrated. There's all these things. The system is rigged against you. There's no way for you to work hard enough to get ahead and improve." And Trump said, "It's everyone's fault but yours, and we can do something about it."
Yeah.
So there's the appeal to reason, and then there's the appeal to emotion. The emotion being, hate primarily, but not just hate, which is how it was more than just David Duke and his boys showing up at the polls.
I agree.
That ties into, you're right, it's everyone who voted for him isn't the worst of the worst, but the people who still haven't woken up and said, you know what, maybe indefinite detention for children trying to come to America is not the best thing.
I agree.
They're the people who are still on board and not just, silent agreement, but carrying water for them every day. Those people need to be called out and taken to task.
Got you. And totally with you in that corner. It was an appeal to emotion, and I feel like both sides, and not saying both sides are the same, both sides tapped into the emotion just like you said, but Bernie tapped into that optimism that we saw, back whenever, Barack Obama was running, but with a more populist message than Barack Obama had, in my opinion, where, Trump tapped into, the anger, the hate, the resentment, and focused that with laser precision on immigrants, on liberals, on Democrats, and so that's got to be respected. But at the same time, like you said, it was a message of hate. It was a message of attacking the other, and I would even say it was a very, very simple message. What Bernie was asking us to do, and even what he's asking us to do right now, is going to take a serious investment and overhaul of how we operate our society and how we operate as a country internationally. Where Trump has, with his isolationist perspective, which in isolationist slash nationalist perspective, Trump has basically oversimplified things and said basically, if we just throw up walls, exclude ourselves from the rest of the world, and then cut people off, then we can go it alone. We can make America great again on our own. We can bring all these jobs back. We can fix everything, really, really simple. We just need to deport these people over here, give more money to these people over here, which is another crazy trickle down. It's Reagan's trickle down bullshit all over again, repackaged in another crap, a bag for us to use. But if we give these people over here money, then they'll give us money back, and things will be great. But we haven't seen that. The economy, is headed toward a recession. Inverted yield curve that we saw last week, and I'm not an economist, but I do listen to economists, and they're all saying the same thing. Unless you turn to Fox News, where they're saying, "Well, even Trump has said the whole world is doing bad, but we're doing great." How the fuck does that happen? I don't understand.
Right. And I mean, if you go back, economists have been saying we're due for a recession. The exact time frame, they can't predict that, but they can see, okay, we're trending back towards the tipping point, and it's going to come and reset basically with another recession. Instead of preparing for it, Trump let his handlers push this tax break. So we've slashed revenue across the board. We're lowering interest rates. The things that typically are done to fight a recession, to pump the brakes on a recession, he's done.
Gave it gas.
Public money and turn it private, and give the ultra wealthy an extra couple of points of profit per quarter for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That whole the double speak. Everything is going great, and it's my fault that it's going great because I'm so good. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, alarm bells start ringing on recession trigger warnings, and you start saying, "Oh, it's the Democrats' fault."
Yeah.
Well, it can't be both. Was it your policies that got us here, or was it the Democrats' policies? Did you get that tax cut from Pelosi? Was that your idea?
Who is in charge? Who is in charge?
Like, yes, the economy is. I mean, the economy is a train essentially.
Yep.
There's not many things that can immediately stop a train.
And that was the other thing too.
It's going good. It's going to keep going for a while, even after you cut the engine off. Yeah, you can derail it. You can certainly do that, and that'll stop it pretty quick. But other than extreme circumstances, you know, and that's all that he's done, and that's what we've been saying for a long time. The economy was growing and continued to grow based off of the policies of the previous administration. And when you take a closer look at it over time, it's slowed down enough that they've been able to definitively say the growth is slowing because of Trump or under Trump rule. He certainly isn't the greatest economist in the world. No one in their right mind would decide to unilaterally let someone with barely a college degree make global economic decisions. But here we have the GOP saying, you know what, as long as he doesn't go after gun control, he can do whatever he wants.
Agreed. No, I mean, and that's basically what's been happening. It's been Trump, you know, doing things to the economy, and then now we're at this point where, you know, the chickens are coming home to roost, and he's like, no, that's not me. I'm not responsible. I didn't do, you know, I didn't start a tariff war with China. Who did? Who did this? Why is China not taking our tobacco crops in North Carolina anymore? Or our soy crops in North Carolina anymore? They were the number one purchaser of American tobacco. They purchased, I think it's either half or a quarter of the soy that we made here. So those are two farming industries that have been compromised irreparably. And I say irreparably because when it comes time for the next individual to come on board, and we hope, via our election system, if it's not sufficiently compromised, we can get rid of Trump in the democratic fashion that we practiced since the inception of this country. But basically, like, if we get another president, we are going to deal with a situation where that president's going to have to go to China with their hat in their hand and say, hey, I'm sorry, could you reopen these, you know, pipelines in regard of trade? And not only that, reopen the pipelines of trade that we severed and due to our actions, but we want you to break off the diplomatic relationship that you built in the absence of what we took away from you. So basically, we're looking at a situation where this damage that has been done, we're going to have to either find, you know, some new markets to sell to, in order for us, or we're going to have to change exactly what we produce. In North Carolina, you know, there's a lot of farmers who are turning to hemp because they know that hemp is a cash crop that, you know, will give them a similar yield to tobacco. But the fact is, you know, that market is so new and regulation is still there in a variety of ways that's prohibiting hemp from being, you know, distributed widely without being, you know, persecuted. People can't, like, for instance, you know, being the general manager for a hemp farm myself, you know, I'm in charge of, like, finding out how we're going to get payment for products that we sell. I can't sell on Twitter. I can't sell. I can't explicitly sell on Twitter. I can't open bank accounts. There's a bunch of people who will not touch this crop right now because of regulation. So, you know, that's just one industry. Steel jobs. You know, these people or these relationships. These other countries aren't going to be aren't on hold waiting for us to come back so they can give us these jobs back. You know, the EU, they're still dealing with this Brexit bullshit. and they're trying to figure out ways to bring in commerce into their country and whatnot. They're going in on their own. They don't look at America as a reliable trade partner anymore.
That's exactly right. He views every situation as he would as the CEO of Trump Industries, whatever bullshit. He does the same situations over and over again. We've seen where he strong-arms contractors, threatened to not pay them, getting rid of them, and bringing in a new crew. He sees everything as a unilateral, you need me more than I need you situation. Mm-hmm. So I can play a strong hand. I can be aggressive, and I can bully you. Mm-hmm. Well, China says, you know what? Fuck that. Mm-hmm. Russia's got soy. Problem solved.
And anybody,
if you don't want to pay, then we'll get our soy somewhere else. And they're not just going to. I mean, I run a business. Mm-hmm. I know that if I lose a customer, I'm probably not ever going to get them back. Yep. The one time I don't answer my phone when someone's locked out and waiting for me, they're going to find someone else, and that's going to be their locksmith. I know this because I've had plenty of customers say, usually I use this person, but they didn't answer when I needed them, and you did. So from now on, we'll be calling you.
And what's upsetting too is that's just a layman, everyday man's business knowledge. This is not higher level economics. Like, this is just basically simple stuff that people don't acknowledge in regard to how we interact with other countries around the world. But then additionally, the other frustrating thing is the lack of knowledge about how our government is a leader, and also how the world works based off of that leadership. The dollar is popular because America basically went into all of these markets and started doing business in these markets and offering protection for these countries from assholes, and basically saying, we're going to use, if we're going to do business, we got to use the dollar to do this. But if the more countries you have that say, screw America, we don't need them anymore, and with the rise of cryptocurrencies and other ways of exchanging funds, that really hurts the dollar at the end of the day. And I would even add, Trump's lack of awareness about the global community, or the will. I don't even want to say lack of awareness anymore, because, well, it is lack of awareness. It's a voluntary lack of awareness. I was about to say ignorance. That's what I was trying to replace, but it's a voluntary lack of awareness. So stupidity, because he's choosing to do this. His stupidity about the global market is exemplified in his understanding of what's going on in China right now. China is building Silk Road 2.0. They are building an infrastructure across Europe, through Africa, through Italy, to all over the place, building ports, investing in the infrastructure of companies. They're doing exactly what America was doing initially, but from a financial perspective and a financially driven perspective, and basically putting these countries into debt, and nobody knows what's going to happen if, for instance, one of these poor countries in Africa suddenly comes up short on a payment. Does China just suddenly own a facility or land, or is it what? We don't know what's in the contracts in regard to defaulting on these. We could have a whole other situation like we had in Haiti, where basically that country is just basically completely plunged into poverty. We don't know what's going to happen, but the fact is, Trump should have known this before he even decided to lay out a single tariff. He should have known that there were other places they could go. And one place that China went in regard to getting soy and purchasing soy or whatever? Russia.
Yeah, I have to say it's not just Trump either. I mean, we all remember not too long ago, Ben Carson was asked about Oreos, and he thought they were talking about cookies.
True.
How can you, as the head of HUD, not know what a realtor-owned property is? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you went into a operating room and asked for the a small knife instead of a scalpel, they'd tell him, please, get the hell out. We're calling security because you obviously aren't supposed to be here. But here he is, literally the head of federal housing, and he doesn't understand the basic words, the definitions of these things that he's in charge of. And he's not the only one.
So let's get back to the. I mean, we've talked about it. We've framed it. I feel pretty well. But let's focus on these top three because we got 15 minutes, so we can get into. We can dedicate about 3 minutes to each one. So the cult of tradition, one only has to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi gnosis was nourished by traditionalist syncretistic occult elements. So yeah, like you said before, make America great again. But even tradition ties into religion because they like to proclaim themselves to be true Christians, even though they're about putting people in cages and grabbing pussies and having multiple wives, and blasphemy and declaring themselves the second coming of God, jokingly, the way I've heard fascists say online. But yeah, so they're trying to appeal to tradition. They're trying to let people know, look, we are, of, this same holy, sacred faith as, all of the people, that you trusted who came before. God is with us. They're against the enemy. So if you want to side with us, that's where you want to be because, the right is right and the left is going to hell. That's the occult element that I believe is integrated into this new American fascist movement.
Right.
Let's see here. Okay, so then the rejection of modernism, make America great again. So this whole viewpoint that we're moving too forward. Too fast. That women shouldn't have rights. That that gays shouldn't be able to get married. These are modern. We could say these are modern ideas. These are modern concepts, and these are modern things that are being rejected and being treated as abominations and the reason for the depravity and the degradation and the downfall of America. America is falling apart because we've given too many rights to too many people who are brown or gay or whatever. So I mean that's part of the rejection of modernism. Also in regard to technology, this whole desire to censor platforms that they don't like and infringe upon freedom of speech, to force Facebook and force Twitter to put information, not information, but individuals who have been documented spreading basically hateful, untrue propaganda online. There's this push to try to force them to these businesses, and this is supposed to be the party of big business. There's this push to force these businesses to use their free speech, to silence their free speech, and make these individuals carry these messages.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, hell, what do they call us? We're progressives. Progress.
Exactly.
We want progress. We don't want to stay where things aren't good. We want to make them good. They weren't good before. They may have been better for some, but not for all. And they're certainly not good now.
Exactly.
But they're resisting progress. And if you look and ignore the labels of political parties, since the very beginning of our country, progressives have been dragging conservatives into the future.
Yep. Civil rights, slavery, women's rights, every single movement of progress has been made by progressives.
200 years ago, Trump and the Republicans would be saying, England's not that bad, you need to respect the king.
They're saying it right now, just aren't saying England.
Right.
And then lastly, part three, or three, of the cult of action for action's sake. Action, being beautiful in itself, must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. So there's your anti-intellectualism right there. There's stop thinking, libtard. Stop, there's not enough to go around. We just need to get rid of all these, brown people and send these people back to where they came from. And, that's going to be how, we fix all this. And it's without okay, can we think, okay, so who's going to come and do these jobs that, you don't do? Are you going to quit your job and do these jobs? Who's going to, go into these fields and, pick this agricultural? Who's going to, perform these services that we, don't have enough of an infrastructure for. And on top of that, too, in regard to growing our population and taking care of, the aging population, Social Security isn't covered by the generation you're in. It's covered by the generation that comes after you. So if we recognize that there are low birth rates among, the individuals that you favor, and we recognize that, basically we have increased the collective wealth of the country by bringing in new blood, if you will, from around the world. How are we going to fill that gap? There's all these open questions that go unanswered that have or they have really, really simple answers, and sometimes those simple answers are sadistic, like we're seeing at the border right now. We don't know what to do with these, migrants, so I guess we'll just put them in cages, indefinitely, until, the liberals do what we tell them to do. Like, that's the kind of lack of thinking that goes into, into fascism that ends up in atrocities like what we saw in World War II with the Jews in Nazi concentration camps.
Yeah, that's exactly. And that's something we hear all the time, all over the place. Trump may not be the most polished, but at least he does something. He's the one doing stuff. Everyone else just wants to talk. Yeah, they want to talk about how best to accomplish the goal. It's like that old internet movie from World of Warcraft where everyone's meticulously planning, and all of a sudden old Leroy Jenkins just runs in.
Leroy Jenkins.
And everyone dies.
God damn it, Leroy.
Yep. Trump's eating his chicken, and we're stuck holding the bag.
Basically. Yeah, I mean, so that's the most frustrating thing when dealing with, the anti-intellectualism. Because the thing is, whenever you can't reason someone out of a position they did not reason themselves into. You just can't. So, I mean, if you think the moon is made of cheese just because that's how you feel, it feels like it should be cheese, it's got these holes in it, it looks very cheesy, I haven't been up there, I don't know anybody's been up there, I don't trust science, I don't trust anything anybody says, somebody told me the moon was made of cheese, I like cheese, I want that to be true. I can't reason you out of that. I can't talk to you. I can't say, I can show you books on books on books on books, but you're going to dismiss them all day long because you're not applying an intellectual premise to your argument, your position. I can't. You've made up the rules in your mind as to how things go, and I can't wrestle with that. I can't contend with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to following along with some conspiracy theories, and I do have more than probably my fair share of healthy skepticism and paranoia. But like the people who deny that we went to the moon, If you had a laser and you knew exactly where to aim it, you could bounce a laser off the mirror that we left on the moon. Even going beyond that, deductive reasoning. Why would anyone with a radio, any other sovereign nation with telecommunications satellites, who would definitely be able to tell if we didn't go to the moon, why would they
keep that secret?
Not burst our bubble, especially the Soviets, who were looking so badly for a win.
I never ever thought about that.
Literally, the Cold War. So, not only did the hundreds, possibly thousands of people in our government and NASA have to be in on this secret until they died, and the entire rest of the world who have the ability to listen to communications around the globe would have to as well.
Exactly. And there's no, like you said, there is every incentive for them to basically call us out, call us on our bullshit, and say, America lied. They never landed on the moon. We really landed on the moon. Here's proof that they lied. There is every incentive to say, they're full of crap, because that would up their credibility, and they would have done that years ago. So yeah, that's something I've never really thought about until you just brought it up right now. I was like, why would anybody else keep this secret? Like they could track. I mean, everybody had radar. So I don't know.
Hell, you can see Sputnik going across the night sky.
True.
The Russians beat us to the first orbiting satellite. They absolutely would have smashed us, dog drug us all over the face of the Earth and back.
Exactly.
If they could have.
So yeah, I mean, anti-intellectualism. How do we? Well, I guess, in dissecting fascism, it really comes down to like trying to understand, how do we reverse engineer it? How do we address it? Like, what are your thoughts for addressing like the occult? In my opinion, well, here. Let me give my statement first. One thing about the quote unquote occult is the fact that there are true Christians out there. A lot of them, I feel, were real polite at the beginning of this. And basically, just allowed, the Trumpism interpretation of Christianity to be, something separate from them. And I've noticed in a lot of my Christian friends that it's just basically been like this, casual like separation from, what Trump talks about and what he represents. And some have tried to stick with him as much as they could. But as of these past, few months, a lot of them have just fallen silent or even started to, speak up, about some of the blasphemous and, and atrocious things that he's been doing, but still claiming to be a Christian. So I feel like, a pass was given by a lot of people who share the faith that he appropriated. That's caused a lot of, this misinterpretation. But I feel like them actually stepping up and saying, no, those are fake Christians. I'm a real Christian. I know what a fake Christian looks like. That's a fake Christian. Stop listening to that fake Christian. You don't have to be bombastic. You don't have to, be profane or anything. But I felt like if the real Christian stood up and came out en masse and declared Trump not to be a Christian, then, we would have, a significant shift in the tide. Like, what are you going to say? The entire Christian, all the real Christians are suddenly Antifa? What are you going to do?
There has been some gatherings of men and women of the church, various religious sects of Christianity that have come out publicly and protested Trump. I myself am a believer. I was born and raised Southern Baptist, more non-denominational now than anything else. If you know the word, then you can easily go toe-to-toe with these fake people. I mean, our good friend Glenn, for instance, he's a bachelor and he's giving people marriage advice. And trying to, give off this air of spirituality and Christianity. And it's like, you can't make a relationship work, and you run a business that uses half-naked women to sell coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You have no ground to give anyone any religious advice.
And I'm not, and it's not even about necessarily like shaming. It's shaming individuals for the choices that they make. If you run a strip club, run that strip club. Run that strip club like nobody ever ran a strip club before. But don't go out the next day and talk about yourself being chaste and holy and sacred. And, last night, whenever, Bunny was, on the pole, she donated all of her proceeds, to, the church around the corner. That didn't happen. That you're not, the hypocrisy is something that is baffling to me in regard to how individuals not only can come out their mouth and say these things, but come out their mouth and are the individuals that listen and believe these things. That's just like absurd to me. Like, I understand everybody's a flawed human being, but the thing is, there's a certain amount of flaws you can have before someone can say that you're a fraud.
Right. I mean, if you're a believer, the Bible flat out says, once you make the choice to follow Christ, it's not that you won't ever make mistakes. It's that you won't intentionally choose sin. There's a change in you, and that change is visible to observers.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no visible change, then by deductive reasoning, you're not a follower of Christ. So to have these people, I mean, it flat out said, beware of false prophets.
Mm-hmm.
The Pharisees knew the words in the Bible, but they didn't follow them. Mm-hmm. They only followed them so far as people were watching.
And for someone to say, I would say declaring yourself the second coming of God probably is a huge disqualifier in regard to being a Christian. I would say that's a pretty big disqualifier. So I don't know about that. 3 minutes. All right. So we got how do we fix the rejection of modernism and the anti-intellectualism? Well, let's lump those two together. What's your proposal for addressing that?
Well, I think for just about all of this, it goes back to being prepared. I mean, they take their talking points and they shotgun them all over social media.
True.
And they have preloaded, almost like sales scripts.
True.
Well, if the majority liberals say this, then hit them with this.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to have people working. We need imagery and graphics being created with facts that we can then, how many times have you seen a meme with figures on it and then, say, oh, well, where did that number come from?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to say, oh, by the way, right here's a sourced embedded article that's definitely not fake news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, the pen is mightier than the sword right now, and on top of that too, facts rule overall. So if you can find facts, I mean, what they end up doing is trying to discredit. I mean, especially when you're dealing with some of the more aggressive fascists that aren't really about trying to change. They're just out there intentionally spreading disinformation because they know if they muddy the waters enough, those people on the fence will be emboldened, or even those people who are not as emboldened to make certain statements will just latch on to it because, like a life preserver, because they don't have facts themselves. But yeah, if you're able to, take a concept or take an idea and put it into something that's small, package it into a nice meme that's, informational, impactful, even witty or clever or whatever. It doesn't look like, inspirational quote or some shit. then that can be, I mean, that can be weaponized. That's what they're doing, and that's the main. That was the main reason why I was like, if after reading all of the document dump from the Mueller investigation, and I saw that they were playing both sides, where you had them setting up Make America Great Again. Rallies, Tea Party rallies, and stuff like that on the right. But then also they're on the left. They're setting up BLM rallies and trying to stir up everybody over there. If you looked at that document dump, a good number of those documents were just like you said, memes. It was just basically like images of Hillary over here on the right, images of Trump and black people being, beaten by cops over here on the left, and Russia in the middle, just pumping out that information, the both sides to fuel that division that much more. And now, here we are underneath a president that was, pretty much installed and boosted by Trump. And this is not my word. This is according to the Mueller report.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's 8 now. It was just us. I enjoyed the show, and I will probably be using this venue again because of the stability of the connection. There weren't any kinks. I didn't see it drop out one time, so this is pretty good. So yeah, we're school starting back up for me. So I'm going to be busy, but I'm still going to continue with the show. We're still going to make this happen. I'm glad you came out, brother.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed it, as always.
All right, I'll talk to you later, man.
Yes, sir.
Peace.